Yeah, so as you can see, we've already started decorating for Halloween. So, yeah, that's a thing. Well, I guess there's no better time than now to talk about one of my favorite bands, the mighty Iron Maiden. Hello, my fellow monks, and welcome to another episode of Swingin' Reviews, the show where I take a random album off the shelf and I tell you how I feel about it. Before there was Somewhere in Time, Power Slave, Number of the Beast, Even Killers, there was just Iron Maiden. And with the spooky season already whispering in the wind, I've been itching for some classic Iron Maiden. For the fans that got into these guys when Bruce Dickinson joined, or perhaps overlooked the exceptional and highly influential Paul Di'Anno era, this video is for you. But before we can get into why this album is just so great and important, most of you already saw this coming. It's time for another cover art theater! Starting off, I love this adaptation of Eddie on the front. His hair is totally punked out, and that vacant stare? He looks to be in an almost drug-induced state, or he's just really hungry for your soul. The light that comes from the moon, as well as the street lights, having the same hue, really ties everything together. The artwork was painted by Derek Riggs, the same artist who was responsible for all the classic Maiden covers. The back features a nice live shot of the band, and some short thank yous thrown in for some good measure. Overall, a great cover, even if more iconic ones would have come further down the line. The album was released in 1980, at the tail end of the punk rock movement. Now, I wouldn't blame you if when flipping through the racks at your local record store back in the day, you'd mistake this for a punk album. It's very Misfits adjacent. Now, Steve Harris will outwardly deny punk was an influence on the early days of Iron Maiden, but yeah. Nonetheless, the album opens strong with Prowler. Right away, the music is complementing the grim cover art. Everything from the intro riff to Paul Di'Anno's raspy approach to vocals. The lyrics detail, what else? A night prowler. Someone who walks around at night, stalking women. One thing you may notice, if you're more familiar with Maiden's more recent output, is that this album has a more raw and abrasive sound to it. And that is because Martin Birch, legendary producer who worked with the band all throughout the 80s, hasn't entered the picture yet. That raw energy just permeates throughout the entire album, making it a standout in the discography. Remember Tomorrow has a haunting intro that sucks you right in at the start. Paul Di'Anno's vocals really shine here, further adding to the vibe. After the verses, the track breaks into a heavy riff, with Dennis Stratton and Dave Murray trading solos. This is one of those peaks and valleys songs. The tempo is constantly changing, making the almost 5.5 minute runtime, well, run by. And speaking of running, Running Free comes next, and was the band's very first single. And if you're just getting into this band's catalog, you'll notice there are two distinct eras of Iron Maiden. The Di'Anno era, from around 1979 to 1981, and the Bruce Dickinson years to follow. Well, there's actually three distinct eras, but that's a totally different topic I don't have time to get into right now. But just think of Van Halen if you want another example of this. For now though, two singers, Paul Di'Anno and Bruce Dickinson. Getting back to Running Free, this one was actually penned by Di'Anno, and the track is loosely autobiographical. I love the picture this track paints. You can envision a young Di'Anno in a leather jacket, running from the law and just causing mischief. For more context, Iron Maiden are an English band. This was England in the late 70s, just 30 years after World War II. I can only imagine how rough it was to be a teenager growing up in that environment. The opening lines hit differently if you think of it in that frame of mind. Just 16, pickup truck, out of money, out of luck. Gotta know where to call my own. Hit the gas and here I go. Great Britain's economy was still recovering from the war, and you get the sense that Di'Anno wanted to get away from it all. Musically, the opening bass lick perks my ears right up. It's more bouncy than you'd expect on a dark album like this. Steve Harris, the band's bass player, has famously trashed the sound of this album for years. And while I love the more raw and aggressive sound of this album, Steve would make sure his bass was more prominent in the mix for future releases. Wow, all that for a song that's barely over 3 minutes. If you're still here, thanks for hanging in there. Anyway, Running Free would be a consistent staple in their live set for the next few tours, and a highlight of the Paul Di'Anno era. Phantom of the Opera finishes off side 2, and wow does it end this half of the album on a high note. This is where we start to see Steve Harris's progressive influences. Not only is it over 7 minutes long, but there's also so many tempo changes that take you for a loop. And I know that the epics would become a huge point of contention, especially in more recent years, but the difference here though is how full of piss and vinegar the band is. The raw sound of this album really captures that youthful spirit. It's the perfect snapshot of a band in their formative years. Oh, and speaking of relics from a bygone era, Maiden playing an instrumental. That's right, Di'Anno takes a back seat and just lets the band jam, and I absolutely love it. And after a well-deserved break, Di'Anno comes back in excellent fashion with the next track, Strange World. No lie, this song features Paul Di'Anno's best vocal performance on the entire album. The tracks previous, Paul was digging into the gritty side of his vocal range. This song, like Remember Tomorrow, slows the pace down, giving him room to breathe and giving the song life. The last 2 tracks, Charlotte the Harlot and Iron Maiden, absolutely slam this album to a close. The latter being another live staple they would close out every concert with, and the former beginning a trilogy of tracks that include 22 Acacia Avenue and Hooks in You. Before I end the video, I can't believe I didn't mention at all Clive Burr. I mean, his drumming on the first 3 albums is just incredible. Looking at live footage for this video I'm making right now, like, wow, I was blown away by how aggressive and fast he is, but also how controlled he was as a drummer. And he had a certain feel. Every song has a different beat. And while I love Nicko McBrain and what he did for Maiden and what he continues to do for Maiden, I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Clive Burr. So that's my little Clive Burr appreciation post sliding into the video, and now back to a regularly scheduled program. And with some production gripes aside, this is just a perfect album. And if you want to get your first taste of some classic new wave of British heavy metal, then there's no better candidate than this guy right here. Alright, that's a wrap on Iron Maiden 1. Thank you guys so much for checking out my review of Iron Maiden's debut album. If you can, give the video a like. It shows that you care about what I'm doing on the channel. It really helps me grow as a channel. Swing on over to that subscribe button to join our Musical Monk family. And make sure to slap that notification bell so you know when I upload a new video to the channel. Don't forget to listen to Rush. And for all you Maiden fans up there, I think you know what's next. Up the irons.